story about redemption and how to find freedom.
The first thing I noticed was the smell. In that first Bombay minute, I didn't recognize it, but I do now.
Hi all, this is Silas from AnimationCultureVulture.com. How are you doing? It's great to have your company. We're going to be talking to Shubham Saraf, who stars as Prabhu in the new Apple TV series called Shantaram.
Yes, sir.
It's developed from the book by David Roberts. Let's go and find out more.
How are you any different?
I think the spirit of the characters are true to, in the TV show, are true to the spirit of the characters in the book.
Here in my India, a one-time no is not a true no. Oh, yeah? So it's a true no. Only after 3 no's it is a true no.
Prabhu is love, is like the human manifestation of like love.
Yeah,
and the thing that makes India work despite it. I think that's what he represents.
Please, sir, allow me to show you cheap, clean hotel, and after you decide what to pay. What if I decide to pay nothing? And that is your choice, sir.
I felt the character sat quite, he sat quite comfortably in me. I've met a lot of people like him. I identify with him a lot as, a guy who just is in survival and coping in a very harsh world.
I see,
To love.
Yeah, he seems a very likable character.
I am #1 guide in Bombay. #1 pain in the ass. Yes, sir. Very big, sir. Everyone agrees. You are knowing me too well.
You want to be a man?
Hey, tu hut. Sir. Myself, Prabhu. Lindsay.
Was it a standard audition? How did you get this part?
The audition came through, and because it's Apple, everything has to be top secret. So under a different name, and I knew the book. I read the book when I was 15.
Right.
So huh? Who's this? And then as it came, as I read the scenes, I was like, I have a strong inclination as to who this is.
Right.
My favorite character of the book, the heart of the book. Sent in the tapes, and as usual, you never expect to hear anything back. And then really quickly, they got back. I think they had plans to film in India, and they couldn't do that anymore because of COVID. So they were rapidly trying to rearrange. And so it happened all quite quickly. Right. And I ended up only finding out like a day and a half before I had to go.
Wow. God.
And in Australia for 6 months. So it was pretty intense. A lot of a big roller coaster, I think.
Right.
What happened?
Most of it is shot in Australia, is it?
No. I think I spent the majority of my time, at least, in Thailand.
Yes, right.
Shot in Bangkok. So like the general rule of thumb was like the outdoor sets.
Yeah.
Were in Bangkok. The indoor sets. We're in the studio in Melbourne. I've never been in a production of that size. They bought 8 blocks of central Chinatown, Bangkok, and turned it into roads, buildings included, and they turned it into Bombay. And they also bought like another huge plot in the suburbs and made a slum. And I was like, and I've seen some of the screeners now, and it really is. It's amazing how convincing it is. It's like
you wouldn't think it is anywhere else, but Mumbai or India, really. Yeah. There's a good chemistry with you and Charlie Hunnam, who plays the main character. Yeah,
it would have been really hard if we didn't get on. We spent day after day after day, in a Bangkok slum, like 13 hours a day, and like scorching people, like mosquitoes at night. We it was sort of trial by fire, but we really got on.
Ambo drove an ambulance.
Hey, better we pretend you're a doctor. We could be making so much money like this. Many patients I could bring you for a small commission.
What is your kind of process to get into an Indian character? Obviously, you're British, and it's your accent is quite different in that, obviously. So how is that process?
Well, it's interesting. I was born in India, and I have a very Indian family, and I do see myself as an Indian as well as British. I'm the sort of confused / British Indian or Indian British. I don't know.
Right.
I embrace the sort of confusion of that sort of intersectional identity. It's
did you grow up in Britain?
I was born in India, and then my dad was working in Trinidad and Tobago, so I spent a couple of years in Trinidad, then Mexico, then America, I think a little bit, and then I arrived in the UK when I was like 7, 8 years old.
Okay, right.
When I came here, I had to learn English and everything.
Oh, I see. Right. Okay.
So I have spent most of my life in London,
right?
But I very much introduced as an outsider, and still feel a bit like an outsider. You know, I always go back to India every year, and even when I go back to India, I'm like, oh, I'm an outsider here. So it's an interesting.
Yeah. I think we all feel that.
Very cool, these sunglasses. Like Anita.
How did you get into acting? I think this is the first time we're speaking to you, so I'm always interested in. Yeah, I think formally, as like certainly in a one-to-one context.
That's strange.
But how did you get into acting? What was your kind of what was your journey early on?
It was sort of the only thing I could do at school. It was the only thing I was sort of good at or wanted to do. So it sort of seemed like the natural choice. I didn't really choose it for a university degree coming out of school, because the school that I went to, and also my parents, you know, it's none of us are artists before, you know, my generation. Me and my sister are the first people who sort of like tried to not be chartered accountants.
Right.
My parents immediately, when I would say anything like, what about theatre? What about acting? They'd be like, yeah, give it 5 years, and then let's see if you still want to do that 5 years. Why don't you do a proper degree first?
Yeah, right. Okay.
Well, I did the proper degree, and even then I never really went to lectures. I just did plays with my mates, and it sort of it just sort of like fell into place where after one of the things I did at school, my agent came, and I didn't know what agents were, but they wanted to represent me, and I was like, all right, cool. And then like I slowly started going to auditions, and while I was at uni, I got a job, and I was like, I never expected for it to happen. I was always like, this is my hobby phase. And
I see. Right. And what was your first break then? What were you in very like professionally?
It was I don't know whether you know that there's an amazing film producer, Nisha Party of Party Productions.
Yes, I know. Yeah,
she's amazing, and it was her first film with director John Khan, and the film about honor killings called Honor.
Yes, I have seen it. Yeah.
So ages back, I sort of did that film in Glasgow in the Isle of Man, and that was a whirlwind. I remember after that, I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do.
Do you want to swap?
But in all honesty, these are cheap and not so good.
Do you want them or not?
You do a lot of theatre. You were in The Father and the Assassin again, and another very central role. I mean, it's quite a contrast to see you in The Father and the Assassin, and now in Shantaram, very different kind of character.
Say my name, goddammit!
How do you manage that kind of acting for like TV and film, and then going into the theatre? You still want to be a theatre? You still want to be in the theatre?
Yeah. I do regard myself as mainly a theatre actor. You know, I was trained, like I went to drama school here, you know, at Guildhall, where you sort of really bread and buttered into the theatre. Theatre sort of craft. I think for me, they are very different, but the sort of the soul of the both are the same. And as long as you're sort of playing the space and being true, it's sort of like, you know, if you're being true to the space can either be a 1,000-seater theater, or it can be between you and the camera this much. And that's where it lies. So that's how I try and think of it. I don't try and go, now I'm putting my theater costume on and now it's the filming.
Right. And then finally, what would you like people to take away from your character in Shantaram? What do you feel he, as you said, he sort of represents India, but is that his own journey? Does he have a journey within the context of the story?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think for him, It's really simple in a very sort of like practical. He's very practical in that all he wants to do is earn enough money in order to marry the love of his life. But I think along the way, sort of unexpectedly, what he finds is true friendship.
Why you do this?
Because you're my mate.
It's that thing of like, he is the reason why India works. He sort of seems to trump every situation with love. And I think that's what Lin learns from him, and the kind of what Prabhu reflectively also learns from Lin.
Well, thank you so much for taking a little time out to talk to us. It was really good. And I hope we'll talk again soon.
Yeah.
Thank you. Take care. Goodbye. Bye. Bye.